Hi, my name is Kevin Schusler. I'm Assembly Manager, Head of Technical Assistance for Command Light. This is going to be another one of our series of technical instructional videos for the operation or components of the different light towers. Today we're going to be going over the versions of our handheld controller used to operate the tower. For the command light and the night light, we are currently on our third version of handheld controller, but I did want to show you some of them, the different progressions of them, version 1, version 2, and version 3. Also a panel mount and a little bit different variation of it for our shadow. All of these controllers and holsters, whether you have a version 1, 2, or 3, are retrofittable. So if you have an old one, it's broken, you like the features of the current one, the version 3 better, it can be retrofitted into that. That's one thing we always try and do, is make our newer products retrofittable for the older units. Version 1 controller is fairly simple. All it is it has toggle switches for the 3 light banks, rotation right and left, upper actuator up and down, lower up and down. Also a switch for an optional strobe, which you could order and have on top of your light tower. It also has a couple of indicator lights that are very helpful when I'm doing technical assistance over a phone or whatever. First one is a red light. It just shows an elevated warning that your tower's not in a nested position and raised. That carries on into an available in-cab warning, so you can let the driver know not to take off because his light tower's raised. The other one is center, so as the light towers rotate, you will lose the green center light. Once you pick that back up again, it knows that it's okay for it to collapse down on itself without damaging anything. On the version 1, auto park and emergency stop buttons were located down on the holster box. It was a hit it and forget it on the night light or the command light. So by hitting auto park, the light will go ahead, rotate around, come down all on its own. The emergency stop there is there to stop that sequence if you would need to, if it's going to hit a power line or a tree limb or something's in the way of the tower. This basically just pulls out, and then it's got a tethered remote to it. Version 2 is a little bit different. We came out with this one. It was just probably past time that we'd updated our version. But one thing that we had done on this version 2 is we incorporated a dead man switch. What this button does is when this controller is pressed in here and locked, it depresses that switch, and that in turn kills all power to this controller. That was put into effect primarily because of the advent of LEDs and DC light towers. With the older AC, you pretty much had to start a generator to get the light to power up. With the DC towers coming out, anytime that truck is running, that tower is basically active. We were a little worried that somebody could accidentally hit this, something in the compartment could fall and hit this and raise the tower without it wanting to be raised. So on this one here, the dead man switch, if you ever find one that is inoperable, just give this dead man switch a quick check. It'll have a little bit of a click back and forth. So, the switches on here, we went from a toggle switch to actually a push button. So again, here are your 3 light banks, fairly simple. The illustrations go do that. Again, your strobe. This would be for a backlight option. If version 1 had a backlight, there would have been an additional switch on here. We kind of made them custom made per the tower they were done. With version 2s, we went ahead and just added that function regardless. Rotation right and left, lower actuator up and down again, or upper actuator, lower actuator up and down. We also switched auto park and emergency stop from the holster over to the hand controller. It's a little bit quicker for them to shut it down if they would need to. They would have to go back up to the truck to stop auto park there. We did switch the center and the elevated warning lights to this one here. The current version is this one here. So we've gotten rid of the toggle switches. Those tended to get hit, knocked off, broken, whatever. So we made it all nice and flush here. Nothing protruding out that could get broken. Again, elevated warning and center lights are down here on the holster box. Few things different with this. Instead of a hardwired coil cord for the tethered remote, these actually use a Cat5 cable, same as any other computer. The one thing that we do like to emphasize, a few people have done this, there's a little slot in here on this connector. You have to make sure that locking tab is in there before you go ahead and thread it onto this controller. Otherwise it'll break that little locking tab off, and then we'd have to send you another coil cord. I'll show you this too on an actual truck out here with a tower on it, but basically to get rid of the dead man switch, which is no longer there, to activate this one, you would press down left and right simultaneously on it. Hold that down in about 3 seconds. All the back lighting on these membranes will flash from a red to a green, showing that your controller is active. On a dual controller too, that would be how you would know which controller was the active one and which one was the dormant one. Again, 3 light banks for the 3 tiers, strobe, backlight there, actuator is up and down, auto park, and emergency stop on that. This will automatically time itself out after about 2 or 3 minutes of inactivity, so it will go dormant, and that's how we're preventing it from accidentally being bumped. Another thing I do like to show people too, a lot of people aren't aware of this, that we do have a panel mount version for all of our light towers. This would be a lot of these are mounted either on a pump panel, or sometimes on smaller trucks they like to mount them on the dash. Again, very simple. It kind of uses the version 1 standard of the toggle switches. So your 3 light banks, your strobe, backlight, or this would be rotation. Backlight would just be press this and that will start the oscillation. Upper actuator up and down, lower actuator up and down, auto park, emergency stop, elevated warning, and on center. The shadow's a little bit different. Shadows, instead of having a 4-head or a 6-head configuration like a command light or an ICANN, only come with 4 heads. They're a smaller tower. Again, this follows a lot of the same standards as the version 1. The 2 light banks, strobe. It only has 1 actuator as well. It's a single stage, so this would be your actuator. Rotation right or left, backlight, auto park. On the shadow, auto park is not a hit it and forget it. So basically you press this in and hold it until the light comes down and your red elevated warning light goes out. Then you know it's nested in its proper position to travel. Okay, this one here is actually out here on a fire truck. Handheld controller, holster are mounted down here below. Up above on the light, the truck up there will be the light tower. Again, you just pull the hand controller out of the holster box. By hitting your 2 switches simultaneously, it's a little hard to see out here, but they do have backlit membranes on those so you can see all of the different switches in the dark. Okay, once I'm activated, then I will go ahead and hit both up on the upper actuator and the lower actuator. They can both be raised simultaneously, and that will be bringing my tower up. Again, I just stop the upper one from moving. It's just the lower, and then here's just the upper. To bring them down, you would again come down on this one or down on this one. So you just go ahead. I'll bring this one clear up to full extension, full height. At that point, you can rotate left or right by hitting those, the same ones that you use to activate your controller. Backlight will pivot the lower pair of banks down. Top bank, middle bank, lower bank. And then that will just oscillate back and forth. It will hit a paddle up there and then it will just reverse. By holding the button in, you can position your backlight wherever you want it. Optional strobe up on top. That should start the strobe flashing. I hope you can see that on there. Then again, to go ahead and auto park this, once you hit the P for auto park, it will go ahead, shuts off all lamps, will begin oscillation to go back to its center, and it also oscillates the backlights up to their flush position. Once it reaches its center, the green indicator light will come on. The red one's always on as long as the tower's elevated, showing warning. It'll come down till it contacts what we call our down limit switch. At that point, it will shut off the lower stage actuator, begin the upper stage down. It will continue to come down until it has nested. At that point, the elevated warning will go off and you know your light tower's down, ready for travel. One thing, once auto park is engaged, either by hitting the emergency stop or by either one of them, or coming down to a nested position, you will have to re-energize your controller. It does shut this down, so if they would put it in there that doesn't have that 2 or 3 minute lag before the controller goes inactive. So anytime either emergency stop or nest is achieved, the controller shuts off automatically. Then you would just go ahead, replace this back into its holster box, then you're ready to go to your next scene. Thank you.